Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I'm your host, Dr. Kim. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We are embarking on a highly cinematic, experimental lecture into the hidden chemistry that ensures our public water is safe, effective, and perfectly balanced. We're going to explore the fascinating, microscopic world of analytical chemistry that operates completely behind the scenes every single time you turn on your tap. To start, I want you to think about what we could call the Goldilocks problem of fluoride. You see, water fluoridation is recognized all over the world as one of the absolutely most cost-effective public health measures for preventing dental cavities. But here is the massive challenge. How do we guarantee the exact concentration needed for the maximum health benefits without tipping the scale into excess? It requires a literal monumental feat of daily chemical precision. So here is our roadmap for today's lecture. First, the Fluoride Balancing Act. Second, SPA-DNS, which is the colorimetric method. Third, ISE, the potentiometric method. Then avoiding analytical pitfalls. And finally, real-world water surveillance. Let's dive right into Section 1, the Fluoride Balancing Act and the biological stakes involved. We really need to establish exactly why such precise chemical measurement is so critical to our public health. Now, while the right amount of fluoride prevents cavities and strengthens our enamel, too much fluoride over time causes something called dental fluorosis. It's a condition that affects how tooth enamel looks, causing white spots, or in the really severe cases, actual bronze staining and pitting. Because the line between a great public health benefit and potential harm is so incredibly thin, accurate, continuous measurement of our water supply isn't just nice to have, it's an absolute necessity. So you're probably wondering, what actually is that perfect number? Well, according to the Technical Consensus Document on the Classification of Public Water Supply, also known as CCAL, the optimal risk-to-benefit Goldilocks range sits right between 0.55 and 0.84 parts per million. Interestingly enough, this specific range was identified for a study in Maringá, Brazil, because optimal fluoride levels actually depend heavily on the local climate. Think about it. In regions with average max temperatures around 30 degrees Celsius, people are just naturally drinking more water. That means the target concentration in the supply needs to be perfectly calibrated to that specific 0.55 to 0.84 ppm window. Okay, moving to Section 2, S-patterns, the colorimetric method, or, as I like to think of it, bleaching the red dye. To maintain that perfect window we just talked about, treatment plants need serious, reliable testing tools. Enter the S-patterns method. Let's break down the chemistry of how this works, because it's brilliant. In the SPDNS method, a dark red zirconium dye solution gets added to a water sample. If fluoride is in there, it chemically reacts and combines with the zirconium to form a colorless complex. This reaction effectively bleaches the red color out of the dye. So, the key takeaway here? Scientists aren't measuring the presence of color, they're actually measuring the lack of color. Using a spectrometer set to a wavelength of exactly 580 nanometers, they measure the intensity of whatever red dye is left. The lighter the color, the more fluoride is in your water. To perform the standard Hochspedenus method, chemists typically use a small, highly precise 10 milliliter water sample. Sometimes they'll add a bit of sodium arsenite first, just to eliminate any residual chlorine that might mess up the reading, and then the Spedenus reagent gets mixed right in. It's a really fast, simple reaction, which makes it a huge favorite for routine daily operational checks at water plants. But what if we need more? That brings us to Section 3. ISE, the potentiometric method. This is all about measuring electrical potential. When we need to verify those routine checks with absolute, rigorous scientific precision, we use the ion-selective electrode, or ISE. It completely trades color matching for hyper-precise electrical voltage readings. To understand the ISE, we gotta look at the math behind the magic, the Nernst equation. The ISE uses this special sensing element. When it touches water containing fluoride, an electrical potential develops across it. The Nernst equation literally translates that raw voltage, that's the E in the equation, into A, which represents the highly accurate effective concentration of free fluoride ions. Essentially, the electrode measures this tiny microvoltage difference and calculates exactly how much fluoride must be present to generate that specific electrical charge. Now, see the S in that equation? That stands for the electrode slope. And this perfectly illustrates just how sensitive this whole method is. According to an Orion ISC manual, the slope is entirely dependent on the temperature of the water. At a standard room temp of 25 degrees Celsius, the theoretical slope is exactly negative 59.2 millivolts per tenfold change in fluoride concentration. If the temperature shifts even slightly, the voltage shifts, so chemists have to constantly calibrate their instruments to avoid getting false readings.
So, you might be wondering, how do these two methods actually stack up against each other? Well, a massive study in Brazil analyzed 276 duplicate water samples over 12 months to compare them head to head. SPADS-NS is generally used for that low-cost operational control at the plant, while ISE is used for heterocontrol, which is basically external, high-precision government surveillance. While ISE is undeniably the gold standard for accuracy, the study revealed an incredibly strong positive correlation of R equals 0.91 between the two. That proved both methods are highly effective and reliable as long as they're standardized correctly.
Getting to Section 4 now, avoiding analytical pitfalls. Let's talk about buffers and calibration, because achieving that 0.91 correlation is definitely not easy. These analytical tests are just incredibly delicate. The water we drink isn't just pure H2O, right? It's completely full of minerals and ions that want to completely ruin these chemical tests. To fight back, chemists use a literal secret weapon called TISAB, Total Ionic Strength Adjustment Buffer. Without TISAB, your reading could just be wildly inaccurate. Why? Because fluoride ions love to hide. They actually bind themselves to elements like aluminum or iron, and if they're bound up, the electrodes simply can't see them. A specific version of this buffer, TISAB-3, contains a compound called CDTA, which aggressively rips the aluminum and iron away, freeing up those fluoride ions so they can actually be counted accurately by the electrode. TSAB also solves another massive problem, pH levels. If you look at the Orion ISE manual, it details how hydroxide ions, which show up in more basic, alkaline water, interfere directly with the electrode. The electrode literally gets confused. It can't distinguish between hydroxide and fluoride, returning a reading that is artificially low. By buffering the water sample to a strict, tight pH between 5 and 6, TSAB eliminates that hydroxide error entirely. But even with perfect buffers, the hardware itself can drift and lose accuracy over time. Researchers for the Water Research Commission in South Africa rigorously evaluated the ISE method and discovered some really vital and surprisingly practical lab tricks. They recommend storing the main sensor dry in the air while keeping the reference electrode wet in deionized water. But honestly, here is my absolute favorite detail. To prevent electrode drift and keep the sensor perfectly linear, they recommend regularly cleaning this highly advanced, expensive piece of laboratory equipment with standard, everyday fluoride toothpaste. Sometimes the absolute best chemical solutions are the ones sitting right in your bathroom cabinet. No kidding. All right, our final section, number 5, real-world water surveillance, or mapping the perfect drop. Let's zoom out from all this microscopic chemistry inside the laboratory and see how these methods are actively mapping and protecting public health on a macro scale. 375. That is the exact number of drinking water samples recently collected and inspected by researchers across 200 different localities in Constanța County, Romania. And they weren't just testing the main municipal plant, they were out there testing individual village fountains and wells. Using the highly accurate ISE and titrometric methods, they analyzed those 375 samples and found some pretty alarming outliers. Most of the county was totally fine, but 4 out of 81 public water networks and fountains in 21 different localities had fluoride concentrations surpassing 1 part per million. By meticulously testing the water, they were able to build a comprehensive county-wide fluoride map. And this map is vital. It tells health officials exactly where to implement therapeutic fluoridation for kids and exactly which specific towns need to avoid further fluoride to prevent fluorosis. This is literally analytical chemistry actively guiding civic health policy. So, as we wrap up this cinematic explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen the incredible biological stakes and the intense laboratory precision required, from bleaching red zirconium dyes to balancing Nernst equations with TISAD buffers. Every single day, a massive, hidden civic effort is happening to sustain this super delicate chemical balancing act. With margins of error this small, as our global population grows and our water sources become way more complex, how will our infrastructure continue to adapt to guarantee that perfect drop? I'm Dr. Kem, and thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer. Keep questioning and always keep analyzing.